Hey, I wrote you a late Valentine's Day card.
Oh, you did? Oh, well, okay, let's take a look. Where's the thing? All right, cool. Cute. Roses are red, violets are blue. I'm I'm in the alpha, and look, you are for real, for real, for real.
Nope.
Hey, it's Soul. It's February 16th, 2018. This is Warcraft Weekly, and
No, I made it, yeah.
oh, you, hey, you made it.
Yeah, I was stuck in a box and now I'm not.
Yeah, I'm really glad you made it. So let's get started. Anyway, this show was brought to you by Shaddix. Shaddix keyboards. Don't get mad. Just bust up your Shaddix keyboard and get back into the fight, okay? So we have a really meaty show today with like alpha information. We have news for live servers. We have Sylvanas being like a really bad guy, girl. I'm sorry. I'm gonna try to get to everything, and I'll have some handy dandy links in case I talk so much that you really need some sort of table of contents. So I'm gonna be feature light. There's gonna be a little bit less of him because, well, Bob sucks, and well, there's just a lot to cover. So I want to jump right into it. But first, though, Let's unwind. It's Friday, you feel me?
No.
How was your week? This week is Lich King Time Walking, which also includes Ulduar Time Walking. The guild and I jumped in and we, like, corpse ran ourselves to victory. It took us a little while to get down. We didn't even do very many of the hard modes at all, but we had a lot of fun. It was a little bit of a nostalgia trip, and kind of crash coursing some of the guildies through was a real treat, and kind of punishing too. By the end of the night, we were pretty beat up. You know, by the end, we just kind of wanted to like get it done and call it a day. But overall, you know, pretty cool experience. And of course, share the short story of your week in a comment below. I love reading them. I try to comment on all of them, or at least like them, and let you guys know that I read them. But I do like hearing your stories about your wins, your losses, here in the world of Warcraft, or in the fleshy 3D world that we unfortunately still live in. Alright, so with that out of the way, unfortunately I don't have a featured YouTuber for this week because again, I just want to jump right into the news. But again, if you know anyone, 10,000 or fewer subscribers, send them my way. I got like a short list, but yeah, just send them my way and I'll feature them in a future weekly. This one's for the goblins out there, and you know, I'm repping my people. The auction house API has finally gone back up, and unfortunately I didn't really report this at all, but this has been a problem that's been plaguing auctioneers for a good number of weeks now. It came to the point where the person that runs the Undermine Journal, which is a very robust website that helps to curate prices and give folks like me an idea of, you know, what's selling really good, what's trending, and so on and so forth. The person that was running that site was not so much threatening, but pretty much guaranteeing that, hey, you know what, if this API doesn't come back up, they won't be able to extract World of Warcraft data from live servers, they won't be able to update the site, it's going to be useless, and, well, things are going to dry up and they'd have to shut this website down. And that's really unfortunate. Now, it's not certain whether or not that particular post, this was something on Reddit, it's not really certain whether or not that really got Blizzard to kind of get off their butts and get this back up and running, but who cares? It's back up and running. People might have noticed, depending on your realm, of course, there might have been some fluctuations of prices, there might have been misposts of certain items, maybe people selling stuff for like only a couple of copper as opposed to a couple 100,000 gold. Things got kind of weird for people that are really dependent on add-ons to sell stuff. So fortunately, that stuff is back up and running. We can resume gouging the market and taking advantage of people. Whoop-de-doo. The embattled leveling experience in today's World of Warcraft continues to be embattled with all the salt flowing through, thanks to a bunch of, thanks to a number of hotfixes that were performed over the past, you know, couple of days and weeks. Most recently was a hotfix that now stops players from taking advantage of being able to warp all the way to Argus in order to leech off of XP and get boatloads of, well, XP. At the same time, they raise the amount of experience that you get from a dungeon, so, like, yay. But at the same time, the salt runs free. There are still a number of players that really enjoy just the fast leveling experience and don't give a flying something or other about the actual experience of leveling. And that's okay, that's just something that we're going to have to expect from these several different camps of players that feel certain ways. My personal salt lies with the fact, or at least so far the fact, that Zandalari trolls are not going to be paladins, which means the Horde are not going to get any new paladins, and at least off the top of my stupid head, the Alliance are not going to get any new shamans. So I'm sure that there are a number of Alliance players that are pretty salty about that too. I for one would love to have the opportunity to roll as a new race, as a paladin, so that way I can jump into the conversation of, hey, I want to be able to level faster too. God damn it, Blizzard.
You really want to be a part of that?
Not necessarily. I mean, more than anything, I do want to be able to at least get the have some additional choice given to me as to what race I feel like rolling, and then everything that comes after that will just be coming for me. It's like wow, I want to level faster. I want this experience to be faster. But I know at least for me. You're damn right. I want more of an excuse to just play through that old content. I mean, I can do it for fun, certainly, but having some direct motivation to do it as well would help too. The Azerothian, is that how they're pronounced? Azerothian, Shorothian, spell it out. Whatever. Those cultists are doing their channeling thing again. A moon or two ago, these cultists were doing a cast, and by the end of that cast, we got a patch. Now that sounds cool, but this time the cast is expected to end early morning March 7th here in the US. So now the speculation is, what's gonna happen on March 7th? It seems pretty obvious to me. All it takes is a little bit of research, and you know what? I found out that it's going to be National Herd Day.
What?
Yes, it is a holiday to celebrate small businesses and their fight against the oppressive big business that's threatening to push them all out. I know, it's like so exciting.
Actually, I'm seeing that it's National Cereal Day.
National Cereal Day? Hell yeah, dude, I'm up for some, what was it? Honey Bunches of Oats? Frosted Mini Wheats? Oh, I miss that so bad.
I'm also seeing that it's National Crown of Roast Pork Day.
Hey, you're right. That's even better. Pork? Well, why not both? I mean, they're both days. I'll have cereal for breakfast, then I'll have the... Okay, I'm kind of getting thrown off here. Okay, March 7th. Obviously, it's not going to be any of that stuff happening in the world of Warcraft, but what do you folks at home on the toilet, what do you guys think? What do you girls think? Is it going to be a patch? Yeah, probably not. We haven't seen anything on the PTR really. Is it going to be a new narrative? Are we going to get an advancement on the Legion story? Are we going to get a surprise? Upright orcs are here, haha! Or is the moon going to fall on the planet? Everyone dies, and then they shut down servers. Who knows? The Mythic Dungeon Invitational is coming back, starting on February 27th, where they're going to start doing the qualifiers over that, and the following week. I, for one, am quite excited to watch it. So I'm not going to be doing this stuff, because, come on, you guys know me, I'm not good at this game. I don't do any of that stuff, but I am interested in watching it. It's just that these 2 weeks, they're spent doing the whole, what they're calling the proving grounds, basically the qualifiers. So during those 2 weeks, the best teams on the planet are going to be getting together, practicing their skills, and trying to make it to the qualifiers. Like I said, I'm excited to watch these things. They were pretty fun to watch. I do have pretty high hopes that this is going to be an even more exciting event now that we have, now that we had one invitational that went through, and now that we're going to the other, we had quite a few changes that happened, including the change to battle reses, and how that's going to be a bit different. It'll be cool to see the new meta, how our team's handling this dungeon, this affix, and by the way, during the first week of the proving grounds, they're going to be dealing with, not me, they'll be dealing with Raging, Volcanic, and Tyrannical. The following week, on March 6th, they'll be dealing with Teaming, Explosive, and Fortified affixes, so that should be fun. From the looks of it, those are all the dates that we have right now, so just stay tuned. I'll be reporting when we're going to see like new dates as to when we can start actually watching live streams, like the actual competition go down. And the last bit of news, to celebrate Chinese New Year, Blizzard released a new mount. It's a puppy. This guy's going for the usual 25 bones or something along the lines of like 300,000 gold over on the US side. It's cute. It's a puppy. It flies. We got to see some of the unfolding hotfix drama as people complained that it was too small, and then it was too big, and then it was too small again, and then they made it slightly bigger again, and well, there's that. So that makes 3 mounts introduced into the cash shop during the course of World of Warcraft Legion. Meanwhile, I think we're at like a little over 110 or so mounts that are available in-game through other various means. Now we can have our gripes and our salt about these sort of cash mount shop things. I know I'm kind of pre-defending it, partially because I got into a conversation over Twitter with someone about like the whole principle of cash shop mounts. But to me, cash shop mounts are just one more category. I mean, there's cash shop mounts, there's gladiator mounts, there's mythic raid stuff. You know, there are different things that we can get as long as we pursue that path and go for it. So as long as that path is there and we can go for it and we can get it, cool. I'm not going to be mad about not being able to get a gladiator mount and I feel that I should deserve it by doing pet battles. That doesn't seem cool. It's just a way to celebrate the thing that you do in the world of Warcraft and get some recognition for it. In the case of a cash shop mount, it's one of two things. It's either you can afford to buy it or you can afford to have the gold to buy the token to buy it. And that's all that really is. I mean, yeah, you can criticize the practice of buying stuff from a cash shop all you want, but to me, it's the same argument as working really hard so you can get that mythic mount, either by paying gold for and buying a carry, or by working up the skill to get it yourself. And now, at last, onto the alpha.
Are you still mad about earlier?
I'm hella mad, dude.
Aw.
That was dirty. You know, now I gotta look again. Am I in the alpha? Nope.
Ha.
You suck.
Whatever, I'm in the alpha.
You still suck. As usual, there are a couple of very interesting things to report from the alpha. There are a lot of big shifts and changes, and let me remind everyone now that everything that we're talking about here in the Battle for Azeroth Alpha is all subject to change. Everything here might be, whoop, it might just be wiped out before servers go live. So I'm not going to get too far into the specifics of things because, again, like these values and numbers and the little nuances, all this is subject to change. But as usual, I'll try my best to do a very spoiler light sort of approach to some of these changes and even some of the lore developments. And then you folks at home, at work, in the car, in the toilet, on the work toilet. Yes, I saw that comment. We'll see how you people feel about these changes and developments. Let me know in a comment below. First off, there's going to be a very big change on itemization and how weapons are going to be treated in the Battle for Azeroth. Right now, there's a pretty big inconsistency on how certain classes and specs are dependent on your weapon. Weapons provide a very big boost of power in the world of Warcraft, but again, it depends on your class and spec. You might notice that some of your abilities are entirely dependent on weapon damage. Other abilities are based on attack power. And because of that, and keep in mind, I'm using very layman speak, so if it sounds a little vague, I do apologize. But what this basically means is that in the current iteration of WoW, there are some specs that are very dependent on a weapon's item level, while some, they could care less. So the big change coming is that abilities are going to be dependent solely on attack power as opposed to weapon damage. Here's what it's going to do. Now, on an on-the-surface sort of thing, for the most part, it's not really going to feel like much is going to change. You ideally are just going to go for the weapon with like the higher item level because presumably that is just the better thing to go for. But even when you try to look under the hood, it's no longer going to be necessarily like the weapon damage that you're looking for. You're mostly going to be looking for what primary stats are on there. And secondaries too, of course, but a lot of the power in your weapon is more than likely going to come from your primary stats. At least that's what we're presuming right now. Overall, what this is going to do is make weapons not going to be like the end-all be-all of how players gauge their strength. Up until now, for the most part, weapons were a very big deal because weapons were basically a very big multiplier as to how powerful your skills and abilities are, as opposed to pretty much anything else, with the exception of like maybe rings that provide a lot of secondary stats. By changing abilities to be dependent on attack power as opposed to weapon damage, it kind of turns weapons into stat sticks of sorts. Now, at first that sounds boring. It sounds like another dumbing down of WoW. And depending on how you critique it, it kind of is. It sort of stops people from really like trying to look into a weapon and be like, oh, okay, let me try to calculate the weapon damage versus the attack power and secondary stats and gauge just how powerful this weapon really is going to be. But the inconsistency is what has been bothering players over the years. Weapons can still be interesting, it's just going to be a matter of how the system iterates over the course of the alpha and the beta and going into live. Weapons can still be a strong source of power as long as, let's say, they just add a lot of primary stats into these weapons. You'll still get that feeling of, yes, I got that awesome weapon, because it's still very powerful. What it does though is take a little bit of the guesswork out, and it takes away the rotten feeling that certain specs, certain classes and specs have whenever there's like, oh, a weapon dropped and yeah, it's not really an upgrade because reasons. Alright, moving on, in a bit of speculation, or well, it almost seems guaranteed that first aid might be removed as a profession. I can't believe it. It's going away. It's something that we've had for so many years, and I'm not gonna miss it at all. It does kind of suck that over time first aid has totally fallen off on the usefulness factor. With developing player toolkits and the ability to self-heal, and like with more accessible food and cooking options, first aid just kind of, not a big deal anymore. According to Wowhead, many first aid achievements have been changed from professions to the legacy category, but not quite to the feat of strength category. At the same time, the recipes to create these bandages have been moved from first aid over to tailoring, which kind of makes sense. There are in fact new bandages that are coming that are also under the tailoring category. Now, if I were to be sad about this, and I'm not, this is something that I would entirely blame Blizzard on, because again, these days characters have more powerful toolkits, the ability to self-heal, whereas, you know, as far back as like Wrath of the Lich King or Burning Crusade and such, we did not, and bandages did serve a pretty useful purpose. They helped to reduce the downtime during leveling or farming for stuff. These days, and I'm speaking very generally here, players are pretty impatient about, you know, running and gunning, just pulling all sorts of stuff, AoEing, and just keep going. It's like the practice of farming is more dependent on how fast can you pull stuff as opposed to can you survive pulling stuff as quickly as possible. And after combat, it typically doesn't take you very long to heal thanks to certain foods that increase health regeneration and so on and so forth. So it's a bummer. It's just a shame that over time, you know, skills like first aid have just kind of gone by the wayside, and at least off the top of my head, I can't think of a way to revive first aid or to make it feel useful. Like I can't think of like any sort of mechanical buff or anything that would make it feel like, hey, you know, I better bandage myself and then run back into the fight. I guess if anything, if first aid could be like a separate cooldown, like if first aid was kind of like a potion that you can use on someone else or maybe yourself, I guess, but then that also had like a separate cooldown from potions, I think that would be kind of okay.
Are you trying to fix first aid all of a sudden?
I guess I am. So here's my plan, alright? You take these bandages, they can still be usable, they can be usable in combat too. The thing is, when you apply it to a player, that player has something like forbearance, where, you know, it's like you bandage them once, and then you can't bandage them again for another 30 seconds. And then at the same time, whenever you use whenever someone uses a bandage, it's like a potion cooldown. You can only use it once per, you know, one time per combat. And I guess that's it. That's it. I fixed first aid. Woo! Next we have one brand new affix that is coming in Mythic Plus. This thing is called Blight, where, while it's active, the more health that you have, the less damage that you do. And the less health that you have, the more damage that you do. So we don't know what the values are at all, but let's just pull numbers out of our butts and say that you don't do full damage unless you have like 70% or only 70% of your health remaining. And as a first impression, this feels hella dangerous depending on what dungeon you're running into. Because assuming that Blight is either the first or second affix, like not the third, like let's say you have Fortified and you have Blight. So not only will non-boss mobs have a lot more life, you're going to do considerably less damage to them as well. Put that in with teaming and you're kind of in for a bad time. If this was Fortified, you're almost guaranteed to have a bad time because the boss is either going to one-shot you or you're just not going to do a lot of damage to the boss. So ultimately, it's going to depend on how these numbers are tuned. If they're not tuned right, if you see Blight on the list, you're pretty much like, oh, I guess I'm done for the week. Bye, guys. I'm hoping that we're going to see more than just one new affix. Now, of course, having too many is going to make things pretty bloated. It's going to make for some weird combinations, depending on how many combinations Blizzard allows. But I don't know, like what ideas do you have for other Mythic Plus affixes? Like one that just kind of popped in my head literally just right now is like, what if all mobs had the ability to cast a heal and then you had to interrupt all of them? That'd be interesting. You know, it would suck, I guess. So the last thing that I have is based on the story that will kick off the battle for Azeroth. And these are kind of spoilery, so if you want to avoid them, well, bye-bye, I'll see you guys in the next video. But if you want to stick around, I'm still going to be spoiler light. I'm not going to allude to very many specific things, or at least I'll try not to. But I think this is worth talking about because the community is in a frenzy. Oh my god, you folks are so mad. This anger is based on data mine stuff. It's the usual. It's data mine stuff that people are jumping to conclusions over, but it's all based on certain text, a certain dialogue that's being spoken from characters that allude to how the battle for Teldrassil starts. From this text, some people are saying that the Horde are starting the battle for Teldrassil and otherwise sparking off the events for the battle for Azeroth, and thus Sylvanas Windrunner is a nasty woman. Oh my. The main thing that players are focused on is that somebody asks, "Hey, War Chief," as in, you know, Sylvanas, why do you want to capture Teldrassil? So it seems pretty clear that Sylvanas intends to attack Teldrassil, hence this screenshot here. The more important question for me, though, isn't exactly, hey, why are the Horde trying to capture Teldrassil? It is more so, why did it burn? So to answer that, and this is all speculative, by the way, to answer that, we have to kind of backtrack to this previous question. You know, why is Sylvanas trying to capture the damn tree? This goes back to a far-off theory that I had, is that Teldrassil, as a world tree, it's old. It's at least like 10 or so thousand years old because it was planted after the Sundering. It's got its roots deep into the earth, and from that, for all we know, for somehow, some way, it's able to kind of, you know, those roots are able to suck up Azerite, and all of a sudden, you have a big old Azerite tree. This, as far as we know, is the only tree that is able to do this. Shaldrassil in Val'sharah, that might be the first world tree, but, well, that thing's clearly out of commission. Nordrassil is the newest tree, but I would say that it's like young, I guess. It's still got a way to go. I mean, they gotta catch up and dig all the way down there and then dig even deeper in order to get to the Azerite, maybe. Vordrassil over in Northrend is like a dead tree pretty much. It's probably not doing much of anything. So if Teldrassil, or Teldrassil as I love to call it, if that is in fact like a Azerite, pretty much an Azerite fruit tree, I think that the Horde have a pretty good reason to capture it, even though they don't quite understand what Azerite does. Which also baffles me. It's like, okay, why are you seeing it as like this really cool thing when you don't quite understand it yet? I guess they just understand it enough to be like, okay, we want it. We understand that the Alliance wants it, so we have to want it too. So based on that speculation, the conclusion that people are drawing that, oh my god, Sylvanas is like so evil, she's like, you know, she wants to kill all the Night Elves and burn the tree. I don't think so, dude. I think it's just tactically smart to be like, hey, this is a source of Azerite. It pretty much mines this stuff for us. You're damn right we want to capture it and, you know, kick whoever's there out. I'm just really fascinated by the back and forth between players and forums. Do you believe me? No? Let's go for a ride, guys.
Wow, they're really doing it. They're finally just saying screw it to the idea that people have invested and have been led to invest in their Horde characters as heroes and just flat out black and whiting the faction conflict. The Horde are the bad guys. Nope, you're team evil. They won't Garrosh Sylvanas. You're all evil. That's your characterization.
So she intends to build her empire on Kalimdor, and that's why she burns Teldrassil, but she doesn't bother to take into account that her own seat of power is on the other one.
She's become far worse than Garrosh could have ever been. Not only did she intentionally burn Teldrassil to the ground, she threatened Saurfang with undeath. She is evil. She's become the next Lich Queen, or rather queen.
That's called Genocide Sylvanas. Sylvanas has always been a villain and evil.
This sucks. I was always into Horde because of Thrall and wanted to play a faction of honorable outcasts. I swallowed Garrosh's crimes, but this is too much. Thank you, Blizzard, for making Horde the evil bad guys. Now Alliance has every right to kill us all.
And that's just the primary Wowhead forum. You can look around and find all sorts of other stuff, but I looked at Twitter. I happened to look at Christy Golden's Twitter, the writer for the Before the Storm book, and presumably one of the people that really influenced the ongoing story of WoW in-game these days. In response to this information, she straight up says, also bear in mind that some of the stuff that has been, quote, unearthed is not accurate.
Damn.
So this means a lot and nothing at the same time. The point is that we just don't have enough context. We do have a timeline, but it's very incomplete right now. I mean, we start off with the Battle for Lordaeron, which is the start of the Battle for Azeroth. We have the event that precedes it, which is the attack and the burning of Teldrassil. But what we don't have is what is before that. We don't have the context that prompts Sylvanas to be like, hey, you know what? We're gonna go for that tree. Because there's got to be a reason to go up there, as opposed to the islands that have the X-Star on it, as opposed to marching straight to Stormwind. And at least according to the text, she wants to capture Teldrassil, not burn that sucker to the ground. Now we can get into like total tinfoil mode, as if we haven't already. That she's, I don't know, fooling her army into thinking that she wants to capture Teldrassil, when in reality, she wants to burn that sucker down. But for now, we'll at least take it at face value. There's a reason to capture that. My speculation, my bet is on it's an Azerite fruit tree. And before all of this, and well, I know it's fun to speculate, this is a lot of fun to like talk about and debate and stuff. Remember, this is all data mined information. A couple of lines here and there mean a lot. There are a lot of players that insist that Illidan is the jailer of the Titans, that he's like imprisoning and torturing Sargeras, when we don't really know that. According to data mined information, that's what was kind of said. Oh yes, Illidan is now the jailer of Sargeras. But where do we see that in game? I've yet to see it, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I just haven't seen that. For all I know, the Pantheon is just like hazing Sargeras because he pulled his whole Burning Crusade thing again, and Illidan is like, okay, wait, what, really? Like, this happens all the time? And the Titans are like,
Oh yeah, this is just like a normal thing. Can you make us a drink, Illidan?
Illidan would be like, what? I sacrificed everything to get a crack at this guy, and the Titans are like,
Nah, dude, this is our bro, you know, we're just chilling, you know, hopefully he won't do this again, but yeah, who cares about you? Now make us a drink.
I think we've seen enough in the World of Warcraft and other games and such that there are several types of villains that exist. That there are ones that are just, you know, mindlessly about destruction, as if they're like a force of nature. You know, think of the old gods in that example. There are certain characters that think they are doing the right thing, even though many others would disagree with them, and Zera comes to mind in that case. There are characters up for revenge, that would be Gen Greymane. And there are others that are just desperate to save their people to the point where they'll do damn near anything to do it. And that is Sylvanas Windrunner. So unlike some who jump to conclusions and they're like, oh my god, Sylvanas is like this is terrible, I'm gonna quit the game, etc, etc. This makes me want to see what happens even more. I very much want to see like some follow-up and clarifications on the Chronicles book that's coming later in March. I want to see what else is going on in-game as we progress through 735 and the other storylines. I want to see what happens in June when the Before the Storm book finally comes out. And of course, I want to see what happens in the Battle for Teldrassil and the Battle for Lordaeron and, well, the Battle for Azeroth. So call me a shill fanboy cuck. I'll actually be looking for that in the comments below. But yeah, say what you want. I'm still hyped. I haven't been touched at all. At least not in a bad way. I have no way out of it. I better move on. And that actually lets me wrap things up for the day. Yay! So I want to thank everyone for watching, well, and listening too, but mostly watching. As usual, a very special shout out to all my patrons and the subscribers over on Twitch. You're the folks that help to maintain this channel, keep it alive, keep the lights running, and in some ways, you influence me. Good for you. But I want to thank all of you viewers as well, at home and on the toilet. Thanks for sticking around, and I implore you, if you enjoy this content, please like and subscribe for more of this and all things Warcraft. I look forward to seeing you next week for more streams, more videos, and more of him, I suppose. But until then, stay safe, stay happy, and stay breezy.